Peace. This is Jamal Robinson with 720astrology.com. Today's date is February 12th, 2024, and at the time of recording, it is 12:13 p.m. Central Standard Time. Want to talk about Mars conjunction with Pluto, which is currently active. It's not perfect, but it is active. At 4:52 p.m., February 11th, which is yesterday, relative to the time of me recording this, Mars moved to 29 degrees of Capricorn. 29 degrees is considered to be a critical degree or anaretic degree. It's the last degree of the sign. So it is imminent change. Change is on the horizon. We're on the precipice of moving into a new sign. But to further complicate things, we're on the precipice of a perfect conjunction with Pluto, which out of our 10 planets that we're currently aware of and using in astrology, it's the heaviest of the heavy hitters, Lord of the underworld. And so now with Mars approaching Pluto, we want to talk about some of the themes around this conjunction. But first, let's look at when Mars will actually make its ingress into Aquarius and when it will make a perfect conjunction with Pluto. So as I said, Mars moved to 29 degrees of Capricorn on the 11th, 4:52 p.m. Central Standard Time, and it will make its ingress into Aquarius on February 13th at 12:14 a.m. Central Standard Time, and then it will make a perfect conjunction with Pluto again at 12:14 a.m., but on February 14th. So it makes its ingress into Aquarius on February 13th, perfect conjunction with Pluto on February 14th. But going back to Mars at 29 degrees, the critical degree, where there can be things popping, things changing, things coming out. So as here's two examples. One lesser known is that there's a young lady here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who has popped up on the scene, at least for me. I didn't know about this ongoing feud she had with the TD Jakes conglomerate and family, but she popped up the other day. I think it was on the day of the new moon on the 9th. She goes live and no, she goes live on the 10th talking about an event that happened on the 9th, the day of the new moon. So she goes live on the 10th saying that her home had been invaded and that a neighbor told her two black SUVs were sitting out in front of her house. And she is assuming that it is connected to the TD Jakes family conglomerate. And she's attributing this to an ongoing feud about her son, who was her biological son, who was adopted by one of the Jakes children, who is Cora Jakes. So out of the blue, she pops up on the live and she's going off about that she feels strongly that the Jakes came and ransacked her home looking for documents and other things of that nature that would paint a negative light on the daughter, who is Cora, and the family about how the adoption transpired. And the thing about it is, we had a lot of disruptive aspects around the new moon. Mercury square Jupiter. I talked about that, how with Mercury squaring Jupiter, there can be things blown up, inflammation. But one thing I did fail to mention is that Jupiter rules the sign of Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is associated with religious institutions, amongst other things. So we got a square between Jupiter and Mercury, and here we have something come out about a well-known so-called religious leader, some type of scandal. Then yesterday, the 12th, the 11th, the day of the Super Bowl, there's news comes out of a shooting at Lakewood Church in Houston, which is this huge mega church that's run by Joel Osteen. Now, shooting, that's Mars, and there's a death associated with, I think, the shooter, I think, was reported as being deceased. So here we have Mars and Pluto in conjunction. Mars rules over weapons, knives, guns, things that pierce. And we have Pluto, which is the underworld, which we could associate with death. So we have these things pop off around the time that Mars is approaching 29 degrees, and that we have these squares between Jupiter and Mercury, as well as the sun squaring Uranus. And so we see two instances where at least one or two of those aspects shows up in our world. Not only is TD Jakes a preacher and is the leader of a religious institution, but he's also a celebrity. So there's the sun square Uranus. So we can see it's kind of a tumultuous environment right now, but focusing more specifically on Mars and Pluto, I want to talk about how I felt this morning. I was very irritable this morning. It's been raining here in Texas, in North Texas, for the past 2 or 3 days, overcast, gloomy. And I woke up later than I needed to. And the children then got up later. So we're rushing and they don't want to comply. They want to drag their feet. And I had to keep running back in the house to grab things. We're trying to get to school. Then, as we're driving to school, traffic is all backed up on the main thoroughfare that carries us there. And it's because there's been an accident, which Mars is associated with combustion, which automobiles. So Mercury and Mars kind of overlap with automobiles. Mars would associate with automobiles because of their combustive nature of the engine. So we have an accident. Pluto, ugly things, things destroyed, things torn up. That's Pluto. So we got this accident on the way, and the people are backed up just because they're rubbernecking. Traffic is all backed up just because people are slowing up, not to offer help, but just to stop and to look at the carnage. So it was a very irritating morning. So as I'm driving them to school, I'm sitting thinking like, do I really want to go to the gym? I got so much stuff I need to do today. I need to mail things off. I need to run some errands. So I'm like, if I just go home, I can start my day. I can start working on things and try to play catch up. And then I remembered something my wife used to say, that our workouts should be non-negotiable. And I thought about it and I said, okay, I've been working hard with getting back on my regimen. And if I don't go, then I'm going to be pissed and I'm going to feel worse than I do now. So I got to push on and I got to go, and I'll figure out the rest later. I'll let the chips fall where they may. And so I went on to the gym and I had a great workout. My cardiovascular work, I felt more invigorated. I felt really strong today, so strong that I had to be careful to keep my ego in check so I don't tear something, because I'm prone to ligament and tendon tears. I've torn my fair share in my life and broken bones. So I had to be careful, but I felt strong. And that's one of the positives. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. That's one of the positives of the Mars Pluto conjunction. And they are in close enough range to where we're starting to feel it. They're only a degree away. Mars is at 29, Pluto is at 0 of Aquarius. It is great force. With that said, let's go into, I'll come back and revisit the positives, but let's talk about the negatives. The negatives, that some of the things that could prompt us to get into some bad situations. Mars conjunct Pluto can be extreme compulsion. It can be violence. It can be sexual assault, depression and anger, automobile accidents, due to the intensity and the combustive energy. There can be deceit, extreme deceit, deception, with these two planets conjunct each other. Now, with that said, here are we going back to the positives. A very strong will, great intensity, creative energy, great power. And I felt that when I went to the gym today. I felt super strong, almost like, almost like the clock was turning back. But I had to be mindful again that these joints are not what they used to be 20 years ago. But I think that is one of the important things to keep in mind for from the 11th all the way through this entire week and basically the beginning of next week is to think about proper use of force, proper use of will, proper use of energy. This energy of Mars conjunct Pluto can feel like compression, and that compression then can create angst, this need to act. But if we take the initiative, and one way to take the initiative is to do things to invigorate the blood, because Mars is also associated with the blood. Pluto is associated with the subconscious mind. So this is also a time where blood pressure can go up, and cortisol levels and adrenal output can increase because there's a lot of pressure and intensity. So there's a need to do things to invigorate the blood right now, especially to counteract the astrological electromagnetic forces that are imbuing us right now. And that's why something told me, I guess my inner self said, no, fool, go. You got to go on anyway. You got to keep moving forward. One of our favorite movies to watch with our children is The Robinsons, and we love it because it's our last name. But one of the key phrases that they keep using in the movie is keep moving forward, keep moving forward. And it sounds like an old washed up cliche, but some days you need just the most simple things to fall back on. And so today was a day I was like, no, stick to your regimen, because hey, fitness and lifting weights and things of that nature have been a way of life for my wife and I for over 20 years. So, that's one of those things I can control is the invigoration of the blood. Now, that's on a physical nature. On a more spiritual nature, which spirit is breath. So exercising is still spiritual because it's the movement of the breath. But from a non-physical approach, I want to tell you about this book I got last year. And I don't want you, if you're not a religious person, don't be triggered by the title. If you're a real magician, you can use anything. You just fix it and doctor it up to how you want to use it. All right. So with that said, here's a title: The Astrological Prayer Book. The Astrological Prayer Book. And I want to go to the section on Mars conjunct Pluto. Now, again, I'm going to read it verbatim, and this is not to proselytize or push anything on anyone. Lord, may I skillfully utilize my immense drive and creative energy. But should I develop a win at all costs attitude, let me limit my interactions with others until I learn how to handle the compulsion to conquer those who oppose my point of view. Help me put aggressive, angry thoughts out of my mind and replace them with your thoughts, which are always positive in essence. Lord, teach me to put my tremendous competitive spirit to work for a good cause, so that your purpose in me may be fulfilled. Now, if that language bothers you, even the concept of prayer, which many people who consider themselves to be spiritual say this: prayer is begging. Well, I deal with etymology. The word beg means to entreat. So does that see how that hits differently when I say beg versus when I say entreat versus beg? Doesn't strike you the same way. Energetically, it doesn't hit the same way. That's why origin is so important. To entreat means to draw to you. When we hear beg, connotatively, we think like, oh, please, please help me. That's not what begging really means. That's being helpless and being a victim. The true origin of the word beg is to entreat. It is an appeal to one's humility. It is lowering myself so that I can receive. It is subduing my ego. That's what prayer really is, that we attach the word begging to. It is entreating. It is taking on a feminine nature. Feminine is receptive. Masculine is expressive. So it's allowing oneself to receive. Now, if that still is triggering, then it all just get rid of the word prayer and it becomes meditation. Meditate on yourself being even keel and not grabbed by the ego that says, I gotta have, I gotta fight, I gotta compete, I must conquer. See, that's where the negative side can be driven by the animalistic nature, the animalistic aspect of the ego. So what we're doing right now is working to subdue that part of our psyche and to tap in the positive aspects of Mars, which is piercing and going forward and leading, taking a charge, a new adventure, fighting for something. Pluto, which is that power that comes from the root. That's why we can't throw away Pluto and just label it as bad, evil. No, vegetables don't grow if they don't take root. And Pluto deals with the area where they take root, the underworld, underground, where all the ugly things are found, where the feces is used to provide nutrient, where the urine, when the ammonia in the urine and the nitrogen, all that stuff sink down into the soil and it's nasty if you look at it and touch it, worms and stuff under there. But those things fertilize the plants that give us the beautiful foods that we and herbs and things of that nature that we utilize. So we are wanting to find a way to tap into that aspect of Mars conjunct Pluto. Just think about it. I don't want to ever present myself as being like, sitting in some robe and I've arrived. And even though I'm the astrologer, I still struggle with this shit because I'm still living in a real life, got real shit going on. But again, you have to grab yourself before you get grabbed. You have to check yourself before you get checked. Most of these people had these wrecks and these violent blowups, and I've seen police several times this morning, and who knows about the violence that may be occurring over these next few days and things we've already heard about, people beefing on social media and rah, rah, rah. It's a lot of that, and it's like, man, is the animal nature being triggered by the electromagnetic forces and then the unknowingness or the unwillingness to respond, which is the root of the word responsibility. Being responsible is having the ability and the willingness to respond astrologically, to respond to what's happening in the heavens. So just a little something to think about over these next few days for you and me. For private readings, I'm available through my website, 720astrology.com. Know the stars to know yourself. Peace.